If you don't have it, you're more likely to get sick. You're more likely to die early. You're more likely to be stressed and stay stressed than if you have these people in your life.
Welcome to A Different Practice. I'm your host, Lauren Lester, and I'm obsessed with all things business, well-being, and optimizing the practice of law for solo and small firm lawyers. I started my solo practice right out of law school, built it from the ground up, and now work 4 days a week while earning well over 6 figures. I'm here to share tangible, concrete tips and resources for ditching the legal profession's antiquated approach and building a law practice that optimizes growth and enjoyment. Think of this as grabbing coffee with your work bestie, mixed with all the stuff they didn't teach you in law school about how to run a business. Pull up a seat, grab a cup, and get ready to be encouraged and challenged. This is A Different Practice. Today we're talking about something you don't hear enough about in the legal profession: personal connection, specifically positive personal connection. That bond that's created when we reach out and honestly share our experience with another person who compassionately listens and empathizes. Okay, I know you might already be feeling a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that's why this conversation is so important. We have a wellness deficit in our profession because we've been trained and conditioned to feel uncomfortable when it comes not only to talking about connection or making connection, but with regards to many aspects of health and wellness, particularly mental health. Our guest today is going to help us ease into the pool of wellness, but first, let me tell you a little bit about her. Martha Knudson is a lawyer, speaker, and consultant working at the intersection of the legal profession and the science of well-being. Among the first to specialize in this area, Martha is passionate about using evidence-based well-being strategies to drive professional success, working with both private clients and as the executive director of the Utah State Bar's Well-Being Committee. In her prior life, Martha practiced law, graduating magna cum laude from BYU School of Law in 1999. During her legal career, she litigated in private law firm practice, rising to the rank of shareholder, and later became the general counsel of a national real estate management company. While still practicing law full-time, Martha earned a master's degree in applied positive psychology from the University of Pennsylvania, and after graduating, she spent several years working as an assistant instructor to the program. Martha knows her stuff. She's a frequent speaker on well-being topics and publishes articles related to well-being and the legal profession. She also volunteers with the Institute for Well-Being and Law. All right, let's jump in. Welcome, Martha. We are so excited to have you here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So with your work at the Utah State Bar's Well-Being Committee, what are you seeing as the most prominent well-being issues that solo and small firm attorneys are experiencing right now?
I can give you an answer to that question with both some research and what we're seeing anecdotally. So the research that we have in Utah, and I think also nationally, shows that we are seeing problems in the practice and challenges with respect to heightened depression, heightened anxiety, heightened substance use, and heightened suicidal ideation. All of those things are areas that as a profession, we really need to, and I think we're starting to dig into. With respect to solo and small firm folks, those issues are there. And also, I think anecdotally, in speaking with my colleagues and just interacting with people in that kind of a practice, there's also some unique challenges with being a solo and small firm practitioner. And some of that is, it's relentless, and I think it's relentless for anybody in the practice. But when you're a solo or a small firm person, you wear a ton of hats. You're not only practicing law, you are doing accounting, you're doing billing, you are the marketing person, you are doing clerical stuff, like you're doing everything. And so that's a big piece of it. You have a lot of hats. It can be hard to turn off work, because there's always work to be done. And I think that solo and small firm work for some can get lonely. I think that can be a concern as well.
And do you think that loneliness in particular was exacerbated by the pandemic. And so there's been almost a heightened increase of these stressful pressure situations that are leading to more well-being issues because of the last 3 years we've all experienced?
So there is more data that is being gathered on that. So I can tell you what my suspicions are. My suspicions are that for some, absolutely, the pandemic has exacerbated loneliness. I think for others, it has been freeing in the sense that it's given people a picture of how else they can practice, how they can restructure their practice. So I think we're probably, when the data shakes out, we're going to see some of both, maybe more on the side of more loneliness. But I can tell you that the problem with or the concern about heightened loneliness in the practice was there prior to the pandemic.
And do you think there's a trait that attorneys have or something that makes them more susceptible than maybe the average person in the population to feeling that stress more, feeling that loneliness more, just kind of by our nature?
I would say it's less nature and more cultural and learned behaviors. So, again, there's so much research out there that we're trying to do to figure out really what's going on. But I think most of us can kind of sort this out just from our own experience. So individualistic cultures tend to have more incidents of loneliness. And we're seeing that that's in a lot of ways, well-being can be more challenging. So the practice of law is a very individualistic. Think about, like, we go to law school and from day one, it is you against everybody else. So there is, and that's the way that we learn how to proceed during law school. It's us against everyone else with forced rankings and a lot of those things. We work in a very competitive environment, most of us. And so that can help drive some of those feelings. And we also, a lot of us tend to want to be perfect. That is, right, that's kind of hammered into all of us. And some of that, I do think that when we talk about like traits and states, there's that can be more of a trait. We're achievers, that we get drawn into the law, and then we just learn how to supercharge that achievement need. And so it's we don't want to talk about when we don't hit whatever mark we set for ourselves, And so I think a lot of us walk around with this idea of we have to do everything absolutely right all the time. And it's important as lawyers, especially, to be checking our boxes and making sure we do things right. But we can create something where we get to you're 98% of the way there, and you're crushing it, but it's that 2% that you're focused on. And so that can have a big impact on how we deal with well-being. And then as that relates to feelings of loneliness, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about the fact that, oh, I don't feel like I'm enough. I'm not good enough. Is anybody going to figure out like that I don't know what I'm doing? And I think we carry a lot of this around. And so when you don't have anybody else to talk to that can say, yeah, I feel that way sometimes too, then you feel like it's not normal, and you feel even more, you can feel really alone. So, and not everybody feels that way, of course, but I think that there are a lot of us that do sometimes.
Absolutely. And I know personally, I've struggled with that, being a solo, of just like, you look around and it seems like everyone's got it together and everyone has a large caseload and they all have this stress too. And you're like, I guess, I'm just weird that I can't let that stress roll off my back, or that the pressure isn't getting to me, because it doesn't look like from the outside others are having that experience. So I think your point that there really is a void in the connection piece, that we're not connecting. And in a lot of ways, that's causing more of this to be compounded. So can you talk a little bit about what are positive connections and how can we cultivate them more in our practice, especially if we do work in an individualistic solo firm in an individualistic profession?
Right. Well, the power of positive connection cannot be understated. It's probably the most robustly researched element of a life well lived, of high well-being. It has both like a psychological and a physiological component. So humans are really hardwired to want to belong with other people, to want positive connection. And that means feeling like there's somebody you can pick up the phone and call at 3 a.m. if you needed them. It's not that you have to live in somebody else's pockets and all that. It's feeling like there's people out there who understand you, who appreciate you for your authentic self, and who you can lean on in times of in hard times and also good times. People you could call up and be like, guess what? I just won this motion and I can't believe it. Those folks. That is, it's really interesting how much connection is important, because if you don't have it, you're more likely to get sick. You're more likely to die early. You're more likely to be stressed and stay stressed than if you have these people in your life. As being lawyers, just in and of itself can lend itself to not having those connections. And especially being solo and small firm can make your world even smaller. So it's really important to build those for yourself. As you were mentioning how you feel like you think everybody else has got it all going on sometimes, and you're the only one that feels like you're melting from the pressure. I have had the good fortune to, and this comes into also things that you can do, right? I've had the good fortune to become a part of this small group of attorneys, female attorneys here in the state of Utah. And these women are judges and lawyers, and they're at the top of their game from different kind of areas. And the lawyers are mostly solo and small firm folks. This is a community that we've built, and it's just watching the texts between these women, and when we meet for coffee and talk about things, it'll be this person that is like the top criminal defense capital case lawyer, talking about how, oh yeah, things are so hard. I felt so dumb and sat in my car in the parking lot and cried. And somebody else like just laughing about the hard things and then giving each other advice like, oh, okay, this is what you got, like learn how to say no, set some boundaries. I pick some cases that are really challenging and others not so much, so I can have a difference. But having those people that you respect say, I sit in my car and cry sometimes, or that this is really hard. Sometimes I really struggle with this or that. And then also shared triumphs. Like that is so hugely normalizing of the experience of being an attorney. And we don't do enough of that.
There's not it's not just me moments. I think we have, and we shy away from them. And I'm curious, especially as someone who is very introverted and has trouble reaching out, I'm curious, how did you reach out and create a group like that? If someone's listening saying like, wow, that would be awesome. If, even if it's just a handful of folks, like, but how do I go out and find people in a space that's going to be safe? That if I reach out and say, hey, I'd really like us to connect more, you're not going to get rejected by someone who's like, what do you mean? We don't need to connect. Like, buck up. How do we do that in a way that can be productive?
That's a wonderful question. And I will tell you, because there's a lot of those folks out there that are just like, suck it up, buck up. And, we've all done it. You can do it. Well, meanwhile, everyone goes through hard times in the practice of law. And those who say they don't are either in denial or they are lying to you. It is a challenging profession. So for me, I tend to be very introverted in my personal life. I have a hard time reaching out for help, for other things. It's something I have really had to and continue to have to build. So with this particular group, I was just very lucky because I got invited to be part of it and encouraged to be part of it by a colleague of mine who I got to know. So it started with one person, and she and I talked about some challenging things that we both had gone through. So it was her lead. So I followed her lead. She created the group because she needs it for herself. That I was very fortunate. So if you are somebody that's looking for a group like that, the recommendations I would say are these. You could create one, start with a couple people. One thing that this group started around that I'm in is, hey, we're going to meet on Sundays and we're going to go to the 9:45 Orange Theory class. And after, we're going to go to coffee. If you can come, awesome. If you can't, we'll see you the next time. And then people come when they can come. And then there's a text thread. So that's how that started. You could do something like go to your local bar. And I'm talking about like the state bar or your city bar, not the drinking bar, and join a committee. That's a good way to get to know people. And with the committee, not all committees are created equal. Not all volunteer opportunities are created equal. Maybe ask around and find out like which are the groups where people hang out, and maybe go to happy hour sometime. So go join a group like that. Another thing that I have seen that is really working well for solo and small firm people here in my neck of the woods is a Facebook group that's been set up. And if you are a solo or small firm attorney, you can join this Facebook group. You just kind of get vetted real quick to make sure, yep, that's who you are. And it is an incredibly active group, and people pop on just to either be like, oh, this is a hard day, or to ask, questions like hypothetically, without violating privilege, and to share resources, different things. And it has been incredibly impactful for a lot of the people that are part of that.
Those are great. I love the build onto an activity so it doesn't feel like, this is going to be a therapy session. Like you said, like go for a hike or do a class together, or even a committee, maybe after the committee meeting, hey, let's go get coffee or something and just kind of catch up. So attaching it, I think, to something else is a nice way, like a low barrier of entry. And then, taking the first step, if you are kind of introverted, not waiting for someone to reach out. Although if someone's more extroverted, for all of our extroverted friends, please reach out to us. And that's helpful. But, for those who maybe need a little extra, just reaching out to one person and saying, hey, can we get coffee? Kind of build it from there. It doesn't have to be a ton of people from the jump. I think that's just a nice way to ease into it. Is there something that, if anyone is listening that maybe is not directly a solo or small firm practitioner, but they're in the profession and they're around practitioners, so maybe, judicial officers or clerks, or, even paralegals, is there something that they can do, to feel involved if they are in this same boat, because we're all in the profession together, or even just to cultivate a safe place for attorneys to feel welcome to share kind of what's really going on and support each other and celebrate each other when, like you said, there are victories?
Yeah, I creating peer groups is huge, and it can be hard to get the ball rolling a little bit, and especially if you are working for the judiciary, you're a judge. You kind of keep things close to the vest, and with good reason. So it is the same thing, starting small, kind of a grassroots type of a thing, and finding a couple of people that you send out some feelers, somebody that you work with or somebody that you admire, start small. I think that's one way to do it. But that takes, for those of us that struggle with getting out and getting the ball rolling, I am super guilty of that. Maybe set a goal that you're going to make one positive social connection a week. And that is something you put in your calendar and schedule it. Like you're going to reach out, or you're going to, maybe you tell somebody, hey, I saw your article in this, or I noticed you did this really well, or, whatever it is, some kind of a compliment. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm just thinking how I do this for myself. So this is what I would suggest for anybody. It's so easy when we are feeling disconnected, or we're feeling isolated or alone, to think you're the only one. When you're in those spaces, like our whole world shrinks up. And so we're kind of like in turtle mode, trying to thoughtfully consider that, wait a second, if I'm feeling this way, somebody else has got to be feeling this way. So what if I was the one to reach out and maybe do a 5-minute favor for somebody, just a little short favor, like introduce somebody to somebody else, or something professionally you could do, or personally that you could do. And that's maybe how you start building some of those connections, is putting yourself out there a little bit in a tiny little way that might feel safe. When it's talking about, sharing struggles and different things, I think we need to have more people in places of leadership that are willing to say out loud, hey, sometimes I have a hard time with this. This is how I manage my challenge, or this is what I've done in the past, or, hey, I go to therapy every week, or whatever it is, it's talking about the fact that the profession is hard, and some of the ways that we cope, whether adaptive or maladaptive, are very normal human things to do. It's really easy to become anxious and depressed sometimes, or down on yourself when you're under some of these conditions. And let's talk about what we do about it. So it's really breaking down that stigma. It can be a huge thing. One of the things that we've done here in Utah this year, and it's we hope to continue, is on some of our CLE panels, we invite people that feel comfortable enough, like leaders in the community, to sit on a panel and talk about well-being and some of their challenges. And it's fascinating to watch. So you have these well-respected lawyers and judges talking about these things. And afterward, the amount of people that are sitting in that audience that come up and speak to these people and say, I thought I was the only one. Thank you for saying that. I went through something similar. It's really amazing. And that's a lot of the way that we can build community too, is just talking about stuff.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Just hearing from someone. And then if you personally have that, man, I thought it was just me. Thank you so much for sharing your story, taking that and almost paying it forward and using it to say, you know what, I'm going to share my story because that could help someone else have the same reaction that I did. Outside of creating connections and kind of getting a group of folks around you for support, is there anything else that you do personally to maintain sort of a healthy well-being focus that you have really got a lot of impact out of?
Yeah, I got a list.
I love it. Yeah, I love lists.
I will tell you. So I have a lot of different strategies, and you've heard me talk about connection, and that's a big one I'm focusing on. Another one is therapy. For me, therapy has been incredibly impactful.
Same.
Yeah, for those of you who have not tried it or have tried it and failed, or who, are curious about it, just think of it this way. Finding a good therapist is like dating. You're not going to have a spark necessarily in the first one. So if you go and it's not doing it for you, hey, it's not you, it's them. Find another therapist and try again, because that can be really impactful. So that's one strategy. Another strategy for me that has been like a lifeline in times when things are more stressful and just basically my whole life is some of the basics, like eat, move, sleep. I try very hard to get good sleep. I try to eat nutritious foods, and I move a lot. So that doesn't just mean exercise, although I love working out, but it's just move, get up, move around during the day, because our brains and our moods are influenced by movement. So those are the three things. And I think it's worth noting with this, over the last year, I have really, there's been a lot of life things going on. So it's caused a lot more stress and difficulty handling stress. And so I was evaluating, why do I feel so anxious all the time and down? And I exercise, I sleep, and this. And then it dawned on me, it's well, you're not completely allowing yourself to sleep, because I was drinking a glass or two of wine every day or most days. And so I'm well, it's only a glass or two of wine. And this is just me. So, this is for everybody else. It's going to be different. But for me, I realized wait a second, if I'm doing that, I'm not sleeping as well. And then the next day I feel worse. And so I had this epiphany, duh, maybe pump the brakes on that. And so it's, I'll still go out and have wine with dinner sometimes when I go out, but it has made a huge difference to just pump the brakes on that. So for me, that's been something it's a constant adjustment of stuff that I do. Two other things that I think are worth mentioning here. One is an alignment with values. First of all, recognizing for me and being very mindful about what is important to me? What do I care about? What do I what kind of a person do I want to be? What is authentic to me? And then when I am interacting in my career with other people, I try to do so in a way that is aligned with what I truly value. And there's a lot of research on that and with lawyers too, that if you are acting with volition and whatever you're doing, if you feel like it's in alignment with what you care about, then you're going to be happier in your job and your life. So I try to do that. And sometimes you get out of alignment, and then because you do it without even realizing it. So it's checking in. And then the other one, this is another one along with connections, that my other struggle is boundaries, because I like to say yes, which is great in a lot of ways. So I am learning to, okay, are you saying yes because you want to do that? Or are you saying yes because you feel like you should or something? So I have been learning to, when somebody asks me to do something or something's coming up, to just stop, check in with myself. If I'm not sure, maybe I'll be let me get back to you. So that has been helpful too. So those are kind of that's a lot. Those are my big ones, but that's what I've been playing with a lot this year, and it seems to be working.
I love those. And I love that they go from very basic and just small changes, like I'm going to make sure I get enough sleep, or, I've noticed the nights that I don't drink wine, I sleep better. So maybe let me just try that for a week. Like
Mhm.
little small changes really can make a huge difference just to the basics of sleep, drink water, nutrition, move. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be earth shattering up to, once you feel good about that, then taking it a step up and maybe going, hey, what are those values? Because that could be
Yeah.
a really thoughtful, in-depth conversation you have with yourself over multiple times. It's not you just
Yeah.
think about it and, oh, there's the answer and I'm good. So I
Yeah.
like that there are levels to the process, meeting anyone where they're at. There's always something I think we can work towards, but the importance you're sharing and I'm hearing is making it a priority and checking in regularly to say, hey, what can I tweak? Because
Yeah.
my well-being is important. And if I don't take care of myself, I can't show up doing this job that I love most days. That is really difficult, but we all still do love being attorneys,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So you said a couple of things I think that are so key. One of them is little small steps. That's so huge. And thank you for saying that, because I think sometimes when we make a decision, oh, I've got to work on my own health and well-being. And then we want to go out and we want to change everything about that we're doing. Like this is the New Year's resolution stuff. And PS, I think they're crap. So don't do them. Pick one tiny little small thing. But it's like then we stress ourselves out by trying to like make all these changes. And then we end up right back to where we were, worse off. So pick one little small new little thing that you can do every day. Because well-being truly is a process. It's not a destination. You don't all of a sudden get there one day and you're like, ta-da! Today
I'm all
I
done.
made it. Yeah. So it's a process. There's small little micro moves every single day that add up over time. So it's making that one small change. The other thing is what you said about how the practice it can be wonderful. There's so much to love about practicing law. There's so much meaning behind what we do. There's so much intellectual challenge and, we get to learn. There's so many cool things about it. But what you said, I think is so true, is it can take over our world and it can take over our life. So it's how do we put our arms around that and give it its place, but not have it color everything that we do. Like I have a friend of mine, the same one who got me into my new like favorite little Orange Theory group that I'm in now. I love it. It's so fun. But she talks about her relationship with the practice as like she loves her practice, but it's like a ball of fire. And she has to be really careful with this ball of fire that she carries around. Otherwise, she will get burned. So she thinks of it that way. And she's like, I've got to wear gloves with this. I've got to be careful that I don't let it get so big that it gets out of hand. And so she draws really strong boundaries around her practice. And it's interesting because of the colleagues that I have that are at the top of their game. I mean, they're the ones that you'd want to hire in all these different areas. They're also the ones that they create the most boundaries and structures around their practice. And they are very diligent about caring about their health and well-being. And when I talked to them about this, they almost uniformly said that if I don't care about my well-being, do the things that I know that make me happy, then I won't be able to do this job. I'm going to flame out and I'll make mistakes or do whatever. And so they have seen how important that being well in their lives really does drive professional success and happiness. Like, we want to be happy, right? Doesn't everybody want to have an awesome life and enjoy what they do and have things left over for the rest of it?
Absolutely. Otherwise, I kind of feel like, what's the point?
Right.
I mean, we're just going to be miserable. So I love that you transitioned us perfectly to how we end, which is asking our guest how they define success. Like you said, your colleagues, that the way that they get to that definition of success for themselves is building a lot of structure and boundaries around it and building well-being into it. So I'm curious, how do you currently define success?
I currently define success as if feeling that the work that I do is in alignment with what I value as a person. And if what I am doing is having a positive impact on others. So primarily when I'm doing that, I'm the most satisfied with my practice, with the work that I'm doing. And as a side note with that is also the companion piece of success is, am I valuing myself? And am I recognizing that I do good work and that I am valuable in this piece? Am I doing work for others that is valuable to me? And am I valuing my own piece in that puzzle?
I love that. I love that. Well, I can tell you made a positive impact on me today, and I'm sure anyone listening with just the really tangible tips and things to work at, because I do think well-being is not talked about enough. So the work you guys are doing in Utah and obviously, reaching folks nationally is just so important. So thank you so much for taking a few moments to share it with us today. We could not be more grateful.
Well, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
My 2 takeaways from this episode are to keep it simple and make an effort to reach out. I love how Martha talked about starting with the basics. It may not seem like a lot, but there's something really powerful in making sure that we're moving, we're eating to nourish, and we're getting enough sleep. When you think about making changes in these areas, or any area of your life really, it's really important to start small, like super small. Say you want to get better sleep. Well, make it your goal to go to bed 15 minutes earlier than you are now, and do that for a week or 2, and then increase it if you want. Maybe you say you want to move more. Well, that doesn't mean you need to go out and sign up for a marathon, although if you do, more power to you. But simply commit to taking a 5-minute walk, or getting up from your desk a few times a day. Starting small and building slowly will give you some immediate wins and will help keep the momentum going. And with everything that we always have going on, it's really important to make an effort to reach out to someone. This can be hard not only because we're juggling a million things, but if you're like me, reaching out to someone just in and of itself is really difficult to do. You're putting yourself out there and not really sure what's going to happen. But as Martha said, there's evidence-backed research about that power of positive connection. Again, the important thing here is to start small. Send an email to a colleague that you've been meaning to catch up with, or maybe someone you've met recently that seems like they have a similar approach to practicing. Go to an event together or simply chat over coffee. And if it feels safe, mention something that's been challenging for you. Make that connection. The person you're talking to may have experienced the same thing. There's so much power in just knowing that we're not alone. Let's reach out of our comfort zones, get a little bit uncomfortable, myself included, and reach out. Let's cultivate a community of wellness for ourselves and each other. Until next time, keep building. I'm over here giving you a virtual high five because you just finished another episode of A Different Practice. For more from this episode, head over to adifferentpractice.com/podcast for show notes and links to resources. If you found this episode helpful, let me know by leaving a rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're looking for even more practical tools to optimize your law practice for growth and enjoyment, be sure to sign up for our monthly newsletter. The link is waiting for you at adifferentpractice.com/subscribe. I can't wait for you to tune in next time. Until then, keep building a different practice.